I would have to think through really hard if there's actually an industry that it wouldn't work for. I'm Josh.
And I'm Laura.
And this is the Devising Good podcast, where we talk about how to create understanding and provoke action using video. Okay, so last time, one of the questions you asked, and it was a very good question, is what kind of video do you need?
Yep.
So, I wrote down a couple things. I think that people don't just need one video. I think people need a bunch of different videos.
Sure.
Kind of like some of the stuff we were talking about last time, like when we were talking about exposure and reach and all these different things. It's important to not only think about what kind of one kind of video.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna talk about a couple different videos, like I think everybody should probably have.
Okay.
And then I'm gonna give some suggestions for some other stuff. But one of the things I think everybody needs is an explainer video.
Mm-hmm.
So it could be like, what is your organization like about? And not, this isn't a so if you think about like a website, there's the about section.
Mm-hmm.
This would not be the about section of the website.
Okay.
This is the first thing anybody ever sees on your website.
It's like, it needs to be like a hook? Or like, oh, you're just saying...
Kind of more of a like, this is how we help you. This is how we come alongside you to make your life better.
Okay.
However that looks, right?
Mm-hmm.
The explainer video is like, yeah, the home page, the first thing people see, so that people can understand, like right away within 30 to 90 seconds, what kind of value does this organization bring? Okay. So funny enough, I don't have one of these on my website, but that's one of the things I'm going to make. But like,
can you use the explainer video anywhere else? You've talked about like the landing page.
Yes, that's a good point. You can use it all over. So you can push that to you can push that in your email, your email list. You can, I've even seen people like in their email signature, you can put it on any of your social media accounts. What gets tricky sometimes with social media videos, especially since, like, depending on like what kind of platform it is, like, are we talking this is a vertical video? Is it a horizontal video? Right. Did you just like crop it? Did you is it a horizontal video that you like with huge black bars at the bottom and top for the horizontal because you wanted to post on TikTok or something?
Right.
Like,
so you kind of want to know where you're going to use it before you even record it.
Yes.
Okay.
So that is a huge thing, and actually a little bit more we're going to talk about next week, or next time. But yeah, like it is important to know where's your video going to live? How are you going to distribute it? So the explainer video, I think everybody needs to have one. Brady Shearer from the Pro Church Tools organization, and they have a podcast and everything. Like, one of the things he keeps harping on is like, because their target is specifically churches, and one of the things he keeps saying is like your offices, like your church building is open from certain time to a certain time, right? Your website is open 24/7. And so knowing that your website, like wherever, is open 24/7, wouldn't you want anybody who stumbles across that to be able to know right away what kind of value you could provide them, or to know, like, actually, no, you're not for them. Like, to be able to know that right away, I think saves everybody a lot of time, and it's super valuable.
Sure.
I think so we talked about how this isn't the about section of the website. I actually think it would be good to have an about video. Okay. So there's the explainer video, how you bring value, but then the about is like a brief history, who you are,
your story.
Yes. And so like I don't know, maybe are you like this? Like, I love hearing the backstory.
Oh, totally.
Okay.
There was a restaurant we went to in Michigan, and it was
Yes.
like, I felt so excited to go because of their story that I was like, I relate to this and this and this and their story. I can't wait to meet them. It was like so weird because it was like, it's a restaurant.
Right. But
yeah.
it felt like so compelling, right? So you are a reader, and so like that, like having that that text there was very helpful and all that. Again, going back to the whole post-literate world thing, like how much better would it have been to also have a video on there for
see their faces.
People like me. Yeah, get to see their faces, get to hear, like, I know not everybody's super comfortable on camera, like, but to even just like, see what is the space like, hear your heart for things. And I would actually say, people can do this just with their iPhone or whatever. Like, smartphone cameras are stupid ridiculous with the quality now, but like, one of the things I love doing is making people feel comfortable on camera. Like, just to, like, you're just talking to me. Like, you're just, like, I know there's lights and camera and whatever. Just talk to me. And after a while, like, I've seen them get super comfortable, and it's so much fun. So finding a video producer who will do that for you can really, like, when you're comfortable like, think about that place in Michigan, right? You put them in front of a camera. Maybe they're not super comfortable or whatever. But then if they were comfortable, all you get to hear is the pain. Because one of the things that was exciting about that place, right, was they had like certain dietary allergy-friendly options, right? And so, like, to hear the pain that they went through that led them to the place of wanting to start this. Right. And then getting to hear their excitement, like, to hear, it's like, man, yeah, like, sign me up. I want to go there. Like, so I think having the about the our story video could be really, really helpful. Okay. The last thing I would say, I've had people debate me about this, and I'm gonna throw this out as an option. I'm not saying everybody has to do this. I'm not saying this is necessarily the right thing for every single person, organization, whatever. I think what I am saying is, if you don't have a system for regularly and semi-easily creating content, having the one-trick pony of the explainer video, having the one our story video will not help your reach.
That's only for, like, setup.
Yes.
That's not to stay in front of people.
Exactly. Right. And so
what do people need? You haven't said it
yet. So I think people need a podcast. And so figuring out,
ta-da!
Hey, we're on a podcast. It's very meta here. Talking about a podcast on a podcast. Yeah.
podcasting is the way to stay top of mind and in front of people.
And so, like, if anybody has seen any of my stuff or has even not even my stuff, but just like other podcasts, there is a podcasts now are not just standalone 10 minutes to 3-hour episodes. They are that, but then they're also shorter clips. Then they're also YouTube shorts or reels or TikTok videos that are like 15 to 30 seconds or whatever. Like, you can break up one piece of content so much, and then you're able to, like, from one piece, you're able to, like, have a bunch of stuff ongoing.
Right.
And so far, I feel like podcasting so far has been the thing I've seen, and that has, like, that's just working well in terms of low burn for kind of the person who be on it. So whoever's like in charge or whatever, because otherwise the other thing you'd have to do, like, people, I remember before this became a method, people would record every day,
right?
And they'd have to figure out what to say, and they'd have to, like, whatever, and now instead of having to do that, you can still record stuff, but it's like, oh, this would be fun to post, versus I gotta post another thing. Like,
it's not as draining, it seems like,
right?
Maybe.
Because it's a one-time thing. Like, you sit down for, I don't know, however long you want the podcast to be. You talk, and then you break it up.
I mean, I feel like that could be helpful in so many things, because even if it's a short podcast, let's say, it could probably just be even 5 minutes, right? Like, if it's regular. But if you have an audience you're trying to reach, and you have a bunch of different questions that they might prevent them. Like, I'm thinking of a crisis pregnancy center. Like, you might have, like, oh, this is typically questions that expectant moms have. And so just being able to, like, come up with something that's short, but then, I don't know, using it in those ways, it just seems like it could be a way of, like, connecting. You're relational, you're drawing them in, you're breaking down barriers for entry, sort of thing.
And so the shorter podcast, so there's a, man, I'm gonna look up and see. I'm subscribed to this, but I don't remember how long these actually are. Okay. Yeah, so there's some people who will record a podcast, and maybe it is 5 minutes, because, like, that's like, I've said what I need to say, and especially if, like, you're the only person, you're not having a conversation, it's sometimes harder. It's harder to keep people's attention, I think, if you're monologuing for too long. It's also maybe it's harder, I think, for a lot of people to even do that themselves, to just monologue. So what you could do is even, like, record a bunch of them, a bunch of short ones, and then use that as, like, a daily thing that gets posted, and it's like a new thing every day. Doesn't have to be, but, like, that's another way to break it up.
Is there, like, a best length for a podcast?
No, that's the crazy thing. Hey, if you like this video so far, please make sure you like and subscribe. Maybe hit the bell notification, but please make sure you do that. All right, we'll keep going. The longer the podcast is, the more likely you'll have opportunities to create more clips. So from that standpoint, if you're wanting to create more content from one recording, longer might be better. Now, you could also just be talking about nothing, and so that's another thing you have to be careful of. So whatever you're talking about, hopefully it's, like, enough to like
so you want some
actually
meat
you need meat. It's best to prep a little bit, that
Sure.
kind of a thing.
Okay.
But if you're talking about something you're passionate about, what your organization is passionate about, you'll probably be okay. But I mean, like, I just listened. I'm pretty sure this was, man, I can't remember if this is the time. I haven't heard airplanes all day.
Oh,
anyways.
Our listeners will just know that they are, the long-term listeners when they don't hear them anymore either.
There you go. There you go. I listened to a podcast that was so long it was split up into 2 parts. It was between 4 and 6 hours total.
Whoa.
And this was one conversation, but they split it up into 2
That's
podcast
intense.
episodes. And the whole thing was, I mean, granted, the 2 people that were on it were insane conversationalists, and they have a lot of thoughts and different things. So it's like they were able to like keep my attention the whole time.
Okay.
So if you're not that, don't shoot for the 3-hour ones.
Does that depend a little on your audience?
I think it does.
Okay.
I think it depends on your audience, the content. Like this, like if it's like, this podcast, nobody would listen to us talk for 3 hours about one thing. Right. I don't think.
Do you need to be consistent with your length? Like, does it need to always be about 15 minutes or, like however long you determine?
I'm going to say I don't know, and I'm going to give my opinion now.
Okay.
I think it's helpful for people to know what to expect. So, because I have several different podcasts that I listen to, and I know for sure I'm only going to listen to X, Y, and Z when I have lots of time, and I'm only going to listen to A, B, and C when I just have a few minutes or like on my way to work or whatever. And so like just having that expectation is really helpful. So yeah, that's a really good question.
Sense. I'm intrigued. I don't know if you want to get into it, but maybe briefly, you said you've had pushback on this idea. So I'm just like, are there situations where like podcasting isn't helpful?
I was thinking about a conversation that I had, and I honestly wonder if it's less about people, my audience wouldn't listen to a podcast from us. I'm wondering if it's actually you haven't defined what topic would keep their attention. And I think that's where like a video producer could help you. A good one would be able to help you figure that out. But like, yeah, so if you're confused about what kind of podcast would keep your audience's attention, if you're, I don't know, I would have to think through really hard if there's actually an industry that it wouldn't work for.
Yeah.
I'm pretty convinced that there's something that there's a way, because podcasts allow you, I want to make sure I'm not giving something away for later. No. So I think podcasts can give you a way of educating your audience. Like, I'm going to just kind of give some spoilers here about some of the topics we have for this. So this season, right, is really just about like kind of some of the basics about video for people, for just organizations, right? And so we've already talked about why video. So we're talking about what kind of video do you need. next we're going to do like, where's your video going to live? The unforgivable sin with video. I'm not going to go too far in there, but I like that hook. What to look for in a video producer, how to prepare to work with a video producer, how to practice giving feedback to a video producer, what to do if you can't afford a video producer yet, video is visual, why you shouldn't start with the script. And there's actually some people that I know who are insanely talented with video that are probably going to push back on me on that. And then the video podcast episode, which we may recap some of what I'm talking about now there. But like coming up with something that, like, these are all very educational, right? These are things I want people to be thinking about. To be honest, I feel like a lot of other video companies would want people to think about these as well.
Sure.
And so I don't know. I think it just really comes down to, what do people need to hear? And what are people curious about that you maybe have a unique insight into? Now, one of the things that I've sort of, I've had this epiphany recently. One of the cool things about podcasts are the fact that you can make seasons.
I was just going to say, I like how you talked about a season.
Yes.
And all of this content is related kind of to each other.
Right.
But it also makes it, I feel like it would make it feel like I can do this instead of like I'm signing up to do this the rest of my life.
Yes. So, yes, that's the thing that I'm like, okay, maybe what you need to strategically do is figure out, what can I talk about? What 10 conversations can we have? Maybe you can have a lot more. I don't know. And there's different ways you can do this too, because you can also like do reactions to different things. So it's like, you know, a reaction to a comment you got, or and kind of work through that on or your podcast or whatever. Listener questions. If you can get listener questions, that is gold. That is like, I have not been able to do that with this podcast yet, but Lord willing, there will be at some point. That's why email lists are important. But making sure that you, like, because if you're answering questions, that's like, that is the holy grail. That is like the best thing you can do, because people want their questions answered. Plus, if you like, if it's not too sensitive or whatever, it's like you can be like, hey, also like say your name, or like a lot of podcasts do this where it's like, record your question and we'll play it on the podcast. And people like, some people like hearing their voice on whatever. Right. Like it's like, oh, that was cool. I remember like getting so excited. I've told you about this several times, where it's like, they answered my question on the podcast. Like, it's that's just like fun.
You feel super connected with them then, and it's like very personalized. You do, like, you know, even though it's massive, you know, like their audience.
Yes, but, exactly.
Yeah.
So things like that are fun. So listener questions, but going back to the seasons thing, figuring out, like it is way too daunting, especially if you're first starting out. I think for most people, I'm gonna do a podcast indefinitely. It's like, I don't know what to talk about for that long,
right?
But if you can figure out, okay, let's do season 1. What are 10 things I could talk about? Start there. Then after you've kind of figured it out, it's like, okay, well, what's the next set of things? Are there things that I need to go back and clarify? I think those sorts of things kind of help you figure out what should you talk about on the podcast.
That makes sense.
And then you're kind of like building yourself up as an authority because you've been talking about it a lot. Right. And maybe you are really bad at it at first, And then the longer in communicating what you're trying to say on the podcast,
sure, right.
And then you develop how you like to say things, and then it's just like you just become more and more clear. I think the more you podcast, probably the longer.
I want to say it's like becoming a good writer. Like you have to find your voice.
Yes.
But it's the same with podcasting.
Literally finding your voice. It's like, just speak. No, but that's a very good analogy. Yeah. So I think, that I have gotten pushback on podcasting, but I really think it's because people haven't figured out, okay, how am I, what value can I provide? What kinds of perspectives can I give? What kind of questions do my clients have? And just figuring that piece out.
That makes sense.
So if you are listening to this somewhere and you are convinced that you know of the industry that doesn't need a podcast, would you please message me so I can figure it out and have the list and maybe on a future episode prove you wrong if I can. That would be a great challenge. I figure out something for that industry. Anyways, or maybe I'll just say you're right. I could also do that. I'm okay with that. So again, I think with what kind of video do you need, it's more than just one kind of video. Don't just think of one. It's fine to like start out with one, but I think one is just a little too short-sighted. So make sure if you're gonna do one, make sure you have an explainer video, but then also like do a behind the scenes like story about the company, like or organization, like why you started, and then try a podcast. Figure out 10 episodes and just start there. I think again, the right kind of video producer can help with all of this, but if you start with those kind of 3 buckets of what value can I give right away, this is the value we bring for these kinds of people, the explainer video, the like reel you in with the behind the scenes of the story, and then having a way of producing ongoing content so you're top of mind for people. I think that's a like really holistic video strategy for people. Okay, so here's some practical questions for you to think through. 1, do you actually have an explainer video? Do you have something that quickly and easily tells people who you are, who you serve, and what value you bring? Number 2, do you have an About Us video? Do you have something that is almost like a behind the scenes of like, here's our company story, our organization story, here's why we got started, here are the people that have influenced us. It just gives people like a behind the scenes look, a like almost like documentary feel style video that helps them connect with you even further on a more personal level. And then, do you have a system for putting out regular content? So for me, podcasts I feel like are one of the best ways to do that. But if you don't have a podcast, if you maybe don't have that system yet, maybe think through what are ways that we can regularly put out really good content that will help us stay top of mind with our audience, give them things to think about, and really provide value for them ongoing. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to like, subscribe, all the things.